What makes my research in these documentaries amazing and unique is I have now interviewed 44 people, credible people, pastors, law enforcement, military, lab techs, credible people who say they have seen Bigfoot with their own eyes. And I have had hundreds of practically full-time mountain men. Who says money don't grow on trees?
Money don't grow on trees?
Yeah, right. In the woods picking huckleberries for my business, so I have an amazing network to draw resource from. Enjoy.
Long strides. It took 3 strides to get from over that cement,
medium.
the medium, to get over. It took 3 strides.
Just 3 strides to cross the 4-lane, including the shoulder.
Yep, and he was running. It was running.
It was
wasn't
pretty
walking.
fast, or did it look like an awkward run, or he looked like he could run pretty good?
Looked like he could run pretty good.
Wow, isn't that something?
Yeah.
Big bare feet, huh?
Very large. Yeah, the feet were big.
But definitely running too fast to be a guy in a Bigfoot suit.
Exactly.
Hey, I am doing something fun on this show. For the 20th comment on this show, I will send you this super cool glow-in-the-dark Bigfoot shirt. For the 40th comment, I will send you this one. And after 1 month, I will examine the comments, and the comment that I feel is the most thought-provoking, the most interesting, the one that contributes the most, I will send this amazing shirt here. This is an expensive shirt, but only 1 or at the most 2 comments per individual. So please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and share this with your friends and comment. This first account comes to us from a huckleberry picker named Don Hauk, who has sold to me on many occasions.
Traveling, we go like probably about 80, 90 miles from here to pick berries in like a really good spot. And one of the days when we were traveling home, it was like midnight. We were traveling down an old dirt road. It's probably about 50 miles long with nothing, just wilderness in between it. And we were driving along, and my buddy was driving, and it's a spot where there's like cattle grazing, so there's cattle guards on the road. And I was just letting him know not to hit any of the local animals, be a cow or whatever. And right as I said that, I seen something on the side of the road, and I was like that cow right there. And as we got closer, I noticed that it was standing upright, walking, and I was like, oh, actually, I think that's a bear. But right when I said that, I realized that its arms were below its knees, and it was walking bipedal like this. And when we drove by it, we were probably doing 25 miles an hour, about 15, 20 feet from the car. And it looked over at us and then just kept walking straight. I was slowing down to take a picture of it, and then I had like this weird feeling like it was gonna come running up, and so we just kept driving, and I never did get a picture of it or anything, but yeah, it was pretty intense.
How big was it?
It was probably about 12 feet tall. Its arms were like, I don't know, like 4.5 feet long probably.
Wow.
Yeah, it was massive. And it was probably like, about that wide. It was huge.
Donnie, I interviewed a native girl that saw a Bigfoot coming down those Belton area where the elk winter, and she said the same thing. She said it was 12 feet tall.
Yeah, it was huge.
We were both quiet. She was driving, and I was looking at the mountains, and all of a sudden I see this huge man figure just walking down the mountain, just like it was no problem. And his arms were like this.
Yeah.
And when I seen him, my whole body jumped. Like, wow. And it caught my mom's attention. Yeah. And scared me. And she was like, what? Like asking me what happened. And at first I couldn't speak, Yeah. And I told her, I don't know. I seen something. And I explained it to her. And I told her, I promise you it was Bigfoot. Wow. Because right when I looked again, he was gone.
How big would you estimate?
I would say, I mean, 2 times bigger than you. He was big.
2 times bigger than me, and I'm 6 feet.
Yeah,
So
he was big.
he was a giant.
He was so big to where, you know, I was far away from the mountain, and I could still see him clear.
So were you scrambling at all for your phone or anything?
No, I was so shocked. Like,
Yeah.
it was to the point where when I seen, I couldn't think. I couldn't even speak. She was in a shock. So I was driving, like she was saying, we were both kind of quiet, you know. And then I seen her in the corner of my eye. Her whole body just jumped. Like, her arms went out. Like, even her legs went out. Yeah, like she had a, yeah, like that, like a full body.
I just remember how I felt, what I saw, and it was just adrenaline going through, heart pumping, and I'm
I
like,
bet. Yeah, she's saying some people are like, well, why didn't you grab your phone? But you're just kind of in shell shock.
no, you're in shell shock. You're not
going
going to think about grabbing your phone. Your first thought is, what the heck am I seeing? What is this?
It was probably about 12 feet tall.
Wow.
Bigger than any bear I'd ever seen. And I've seen some big bears.
Did it look mean or?
It didn't look mean. It didn't look like it was scared or anything. It just, you know what I mean? It had a purpose, obviously. It was walking down that road doing something, I don't know. But it didn't run off the road or anything.
I guess if you're 12 feet tall, you really aren't as scared of anything.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Now, somebody told me that you saw a great big bear out of the Packers and got the bear or something.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody hit a bear.
Let's have that story.
So some out-of-towners were coming. I think they were like from New York. Black bear running up the hill had jumped right out and hit their car. And Fish and Game came. Actually, I think it was a local highway patrol. It was a female. And she ended up having to put it down because it was too hurt. And the people didn't want to take it. They could have tagged it and took the, you know, and had it processed or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And instead of just leaving it on the side of the road, I ended up taking it.
And his buddy loaded it up in the back of his truck.
Yeah, it was quite the night.
And
But it was cool.
Woo. I got one. I have now interviewed 44 people on camera that claim to have seen Bigfoot with their own eyes. Well, I did include Steve that brought the astounding recordings from Vancouver Island in that number, so I guess it would be 43. But I've probably interviewed at least 6 or 7 more that said that they saw Bigfoot, but they were not willing to be interviewed on camera. So that's quite a body of evidence, and yet I have never seen Bigfoot with my own eyes. So I'm constantly looking for proofs that would erase that 1% of doubt in my own mind. And this has got to be one of the most conclusive. The first recording is Steve's from Vancouver Island of the Bigfoot screaming on Vancouver Island. The second recording is of some kids 300 miles away on the Yakama Indian Reservation that are hearing a Bigfoot scream. And it actually came right up to the house, and you can also see the footprints. And it's chilling because one of my first interviews was from that part of the country, a native gal that said to have saw a Bigfoot that crossed the road in 2 strides and went on up. And she also said that they had to guard the babies in the early days because Sasquatch would sneak in to the teepees and steal the babies. So you can see the fear in these kids. You can hear them saying, "Do you hear that?" So listen to the remarkable similarity of these 2 screams. To my ears, it's maybe not the same animal, obviously, but definitely the same species.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm from Vancouver Island, Canada, just off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia, and encountered these strange noises about 3 times. I'm sure they'll be uploaded to the YouTube channel, but it was probably one of the most hair-lifting experiences I've ever had. Like, I got goosebumps right now just talking about it. And I didn't know what it was. I've hunted all throughout the island, all throughout British Columbia. I've heard wolves, I've heard coyote, I've heard everything. Nothing like this. Yeah, and another thing too, it wasn't only me that heard it. One of the guys on the radio station broadcasted it the next morning. Said I heard this strange sound, so I actually got a hold of him, contacted him, let him listen to the sound, and he nailed it. The same thing. Like the guy went white because of the sound. It's crazy.
So did the sound like that one I just played you?
Absolutely. And it does make your hair all over your body stand up, and you do get the goosebumps.
That's something, because on this show I've got 2 recordings of it, and they're very similar, maybe 700 miles apart.
That screaming, though, I never want to hear it again. Absolutely never.
Right as I was on this part about the Bigfoot scream, a rock climber from Kentucky came in. When I played it for him, he said, I heard the same exact thing. An hour from Lexington, I was out rock climbing about 30 miles from any civilization, and it was at night, and I heard that same deafening roar. And everything in the forest went still after that. He said he got goosebumps when he heard this, but he did not want to go on camera and share it because he's on a date. Well, to me, it was more than coincidence to have Bo drop by and tell of hearing the same exact scream while I was working on that portion of the video 2 days before releasing it. And he said when he heard it, him and his dog got out of the tent and slept in the uncomfortable car because it was pretty creepy. And I have put all of my 44 eyewitness on-camera interviews on a card here, and I did have one in Kentucky, you'll notice. This next report of a Bigfoot sighting comes to you from my friend Josh Stamper, which means a lot to me because when you've walked some miles with a guy, you tend to trust their word more than somebody you just met. Before I have him share about the Bigfoot, I want to invite you to enjoy 3 minutes of an amazing adventure we enjoyed together this last August 29th. In Glacier Park, when there's a problem bear, they live trap them and release them into the wilderness near the Great Bear Wilderness often. And Josh is a hardcore mountain man and a hardcore huckleberry picker, and he got 4.5 or 5 miles off of the trail up into the wilderness and got charged by a sow grizzly with a cub. He had no choice but to shoot it with his 44 at 2 feet away, right in the mouth. And he came to me a few hours later, buzzing with adrenaline, seeking somebody to go up there and check if the bear was dead or if it was maybe an injured menace to society. And so I went up with him the next day when there was our first winter storm that snowed 10 inches on going to the Sun Road. And in this freezing rain, we hiked 9.5 miles off the grid, off the trail, through brush. The authorities weren't going to hike 5 miles in the rain to deal with a wounded grizzly bear, so we did. Here it is.
Whatever you thought about a grizzly bear, magnify that by like 100, straight at my face. I mean, she's like, whoa, claws erect, mouth, ooh.
In the 50 or so years I've dealt with huckleberry pickers, I've heard some amazing encounters with grizzly bears, but this one takes the cake. So he came to me the night before yesterday to tell me of this crazy incident while he was still buzzing with adrenaline. We were going to go back that very night, but we decided to go back yesterday instead at 6 a.m. Here he comes, and here we go. Well, here we go back to the site to see what we can find and try to get the berries that Josh has been after. So this is pretty cool. You know, we picked a lot of the same country when we were young, and we're both shooting the same gun, Ruger Super Blackhawk 44 Mag. His has got a little bit of a longer barrel.
If I would have had any other gun, any other caliber, that bear would have been on me.
Yeah.
But this gun blew that bear off that road.
Isn't that something? We've been going through thick stuff like this all day picking and getting to our picking spot. They don't exactly have manicured trails to the good huckleberries. Yeah, those are some nice big berries. Yeah, this is Navy SEAL stuff right here, man. I have good rain gear that is hard to get wet, and I've been soaked to the bone for at least 4 hours. Look what I found. A beautiful, beautiful crimson red bush. But the minute she saw you, it's just...
She changed her target. The minute she saw me, she leaped.
Yeah.
Into a murder bear. All of a sudden, she's not running anymore, 40 miles an hour. She's in midair, coming at me like this. And I went back, like this right here. I already had my gun out. I went back, and I went back on the ground like this. And I was on my pack. Like she was coming for my head. And I somehow got out of the way by the grace of God. So I like laid perfect. And I looked back to trail to see if anything was coming. And there was a little cub standing right there, like 15 feet, right where Moose is.
Right where Moose is.
And like caught a claw and turned around and slingshotted back up that hill and across this. Her whole body was like right here.
Wow.
And I was laying right here. I looked this way because I heard something coming back at me, and I raised my gun up, and boom! She was right here by this tree.
Yeah.
And it blew her out of my sight, back over the hill. She ran over to this tree, and I'm not sure what happened over there. Like I looked over and I'm like, oh cute, a baby grizzly bear. And then I looked back this way, bang! And if my gun would have been 6 inches to the left, right, up, down, I wouldn't have hit her.
I just had my 43rd on-camera interview of somebody who has seen Bigfoot with their own eyes. It was pretty special because it was a buddy that I know and like and trust his word. Hey, this is my buddy Josh Stamper that's been picking for me for years, and he had an unexplainable instance that could be Bigfoot that he's still processing.
Left at a hungry horse, half hour, 45 minutes before dark. I met a friend of mine up on Lion Lake Road. We were standing there talking about the berries, and about 150 yards up the road from me, something about 8 or 9 feet tall went across the road in one stride. Like, it wasn't like running or walking, it was just like floated across the road. It didn't have body behind it, it was like one figure. Totally freaked me out. I've never seen Bigfoot before, but I don't see mountain lions either, and I spend a lot of time in the woods.
I know you do.
And I can't explain what it was, but I'm not saying it was or it wasn't Bigfoot, but it's about the closest thing I've ever seen to it, and it still gives me the heebie-jeebies because I've heard stories about Lion Lake Road up here, and several, and
Really? You've heard stories that there's something that dwells up there.
yeah, something unaveragely tall.
And was it dusk, or was it light, dusk, or?
It was right, as far as the government says, it wasn't shooting light, probably.
Not quite shooting
It
light.
was, it was probably not
Morning
even
or
shooting light,
evening?
but
Morning or evening?
evening.
Did you check for tracks?
No, I didn't. I was actually creeped out at the moment, and I shined my spotlight out there. I didn't see anything.
You're ready to
I
get
seen
out
an
of there.
elk right after that. I know it wasn't an elk. I've been hunting for years here. I don't know if it was definitely a Bigfoot.
Wow.
Had to been. Unless
And-
there's some 8-foot tall dude running around up here.
And did it have like arms that?
I couldn't tell. It was too quick. Just and a friend of mine, Don, like seen something
Houck?
move. No, Don Evans.
Uh-huh.
I sent Don Houck down here to see you too. He
Yeah.
told me about that. That
Yeah,
was great.
that was pretty cool.
And I believe him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I seen Bigfoot on Lion Lake Road.
Isn't that something? Right on Lion Lake Road. Did it look like it was actually walking, or did it almost float like an apparition?
See, that's what I was saying. It was like it just across the road in one stride, like it was like floating. But
Wow.
I don't know. I think they go through the trees or something like that. That's why those trees are broke over 20 feet up.
Well, that's something, Josh, because I know you and I know how much you've grown up in the woods. And I know that last time I talked to you, you said you never seen anything like a Bigfoot. But now
creeped me
to have actually seen the real McCoy, it's something. I hold this in high credibility. Well, here I am with some of the huckleberry pickers that have been keeping me supplied all year long. Tell me, Josh, when did you get into this? How long you been at it?
Since I was born, I'm pretty sure. My family's been doing huckleberries our whole lives. We have set up camp every year when I was little, so and I haven't stopped.
Now, what's the most you've ever gotten in a day?
24 gallons.
So I myself have run into a lot of bear in my backcountry hiking, in my fishing, and I've been charged by a grizzly and everything, but I've never really had a bear encounter in a patch. I don't know if I'm picking in good country and there's plenty of huckleberries, so they're not competing or what, but how about you? Have you ran into a lot of bears picking?
Yeah, just the other day, here outside of town, we were picking and heard something up above me and looked up in the clear cut, and there was a smaller grizzly bear that was just coming through eating berries. And I picked a little bit. The berries were the best I'd seen all year. Just had to fill my raker as quiet as I could, and then I realized it was probably a bad idea and decided to work my way down the mountain as quietly as I could.
The bears are scared of me, so I've never encountered a bear in a huckleberry patch. They're scared of me.
Any activity with Sasquatch? Or?
No, not in these parts. Not in these parts. Not that I can say for sure.
Not for sure.
Always looking though.
Can't explain what it was, but if you had to bet money, it sounds like your bet
If
would
I had
definitely
to
fall
bet,
on
I would.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot.
The amazing thing is that's only about 5 miles from town, and some people don't realize how in the midst of the wildlife Hungry Horse actually is. This is an article a few years ago about a young man that said if he didn't have a second can of bear spray, he would have been killed by this sow grizzly. And that's right at Lion Lake, 2 miles away from where Josh saw the Bigfoot.
But it was literally like across the road in one stride, and just.
How far from Lion Lake itself?
It was about halfway across Lion Lake Road there, the cut across road.
The cut across road
Where
that
it
goes to
opens up
Martin
right
City.
there. Yeah.
Okay, I've hunted that quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. DJ's first hole seedless grape. Well, hello, this is Shane, and I've known him for a number of years, one of my huckleberry suppliers, and he had an experience where they saw this giant turd, and it looked like a Bigfoot turd, and then they felt like he put a spell on them.
I was just a youngster, and I remember we were on Mount Shasta, and we're driving down this road, and there was this giant turd with a piece of ribbon in it, and it looked exactly like a human turd. I mean, I was a little guy, but it was not a bear turd. It really looked like a human turd with ribbon.
And can you show us with your hands how big it was?
It was like that big around.
Oh my gosh, like 3.5 inches.
Yeah, like bigger than a bear turd, you know?
Yeah.
But anyhow, I remember we got to our spot and we hiked into this lake. There's still some snow and stuff around, and we got our blankets out and we're doing a little picnic thing, and I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember we all woke up at the same time. my mom and dad, my little brother, we all woke up at the same time, and my dad was like, what just happened? And his conclusion, he thought Bigfoot put a spell on us and put us to sleep.
Put a sleeping spell on you.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
I still don't know if I really believe in Bigfoot. I have never seen another sign or another track. I had that experience. I don't know what it is. So
To me, that is super interesting because I've interviewed 43 people that said they saw him with their own eyes, and I've never heard of something like that. That's new to me, that old Bigfoot can put a spell on somebody, but I wouldn't put it past him. I did have in Oregon, I had an interview where the guy swore up and down that his eyes were red.
Well, to clarify, when we all fell asleep, we're actually sitting up, having our picnic. And then we woke up and realized that we'd all fallen asleep at the same time and sitting up. Yeah.
That is super trippy, all sitting up.
Yeah.
Sounds like something Saruman might do in The Lord of the Rings. And you said that you'd heard somebody else mention that about the spell?
I told someone else the story that recently, within the last year, and they had heard other people had some sort of same experience. They thought Bigfoot had put a spell on them.
Interesting.
And
in the same neck of the woods or different place?
I'm not sure. I think it was Oregon, actually. Yeah, I think it was Oregon where he told it, yeah.
One of the most conclusive proofs I have personally discovered is that I got a guy in Vancouver Island that gave me a crystal clear recording of Bigfoot screaming in the island. And then I got another one about 2 months ago in the Columbia River Gorge, and it sounds like the same animal.
Really?
And it sounds like the same species identically. Not the same animal, minor differences, but the call is very, very similar. And that to me is pretty conclusive.
Hey, there's something down there. You see that in the clearing?
Oh, yeah. Interesting to me because I had a testimonial from this area. Jeff says, we found Bigfoot up here in Montana, and we have video and tracks and testimony to prove it. Well, I am super stoked that we hit 10,000 subscribers. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button to help me to my next goal of 25,000. So when you saw that one on your same property, what did he look like?
He was black. He was black. Yeah, he was black and he was tall. The door was still locked, but at the same time, 6 chickens were missing.
Hi, this is Jeff Sokol, and he had some incidents right here in Montana. And you know, he said he felt like he was being watched, and that's what happened to me in my encounter.
So on our property in Marion, Montana, we're out there and I'm out checking a whitetail carcass like I typically do, and going out there to see, you know, if we had any wolf activity or anything like that on the carcass. And I could feel somebody watching me from the top left. Well, I've already had encounters before, heard growls and stuff like that. And so what I did was I'm sitting there and I just kind of glanced up like that up at the top left, and way up at the top of the hill, sticking its head out from behind a fir tree. There was about 8 foot off the ground. There's a big branch coming off that fir tree, and he's looking at me like that from behind that fir tree. I looked up, I said, I see you, just like that. And then he spun around right behind that tree, and I didn't see him anymore.
Was it pretty remote country there?
Yeah. So it's 20 miles outside of Kalispell, and then
good elk country.
Yeah, great elk country. We had lots of elk on the property. 20 miles outside of Kalispell, and then 2 miles up into the hills from there off of Highway 2, so off the main road.
Wow.
So 2 miles back in out of there, and then we, so we were pretty remote. But that was just one incident of several that we've had. Not to mention, the livestock that's been stolen, the livestock's been taken, mostly chickens. Just get 6 or 8 of them at one time. Just get taken. There's so much activity back there. They would take deer bones and put them into stumps and stuff like that to kind of mark their territory, where they are, where they didn't want you to cross into, and it's palpable. The presence is palpable once you walk in there. I've been growled at several times carrying firearms around the property. My wife's been growled at. Never anything vicious or anything like that, but definitely letting you know that, hey, we're over here right now and we don't want you here. So,
wow, and this is Jeff of All Trades YouTube channel, Jeff of All Trades. Tell us a little about that one in Big Fork.
So in Big Fork, I was just driving around Big Fork and I saw a bunch of trees down in one spot and went to go look, and I started feeling this really heavy being watched kind of presence, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that I equate it to is, I walked into a bar room one time in Wyoming, in a small town in Rock Springs, Wyoming, and it's like the jukebox just stopped and everybody turned around and looked at me,
Yeah.
It's like, what's this Cajun guy doing, And so it was kind of like that kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And where you just feel like you don't belong and you're not wanted, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you step in. And so I started getting that kind of feeling to leave, that pressure to leave. So I pulled my phone out and I started kind of scanning around. And sure enough, when I got back to the house, I was able to zoom in on everything that I captured on the phone. And sure enough, in multiple spots, I saw that Sasquatch. I'm getting a really heavy sense. I'm being watched right now. I mean, it came up on the camera. I could not see it with my naked eye. So today's video is definitely not about gardening. It's not about man skills. It's not about being a traditional man. It's not about building things. It's not about creating things. What this is about is something that is in the woods in Montana. And this is something that we got on video when we were looking at a bunch of downed trees. I think it's a Sasquatch. And the reason I think that is because I've educated myself on the subject along with other scientists, actual experts on this, and First Nations people, Native Americans. And so this is a real thing. This is a real phenomenon that takes place. They're not monkeys. They are not Gigantopithecus or any of the other misinformation that's being put out there. You have been duped. The media has hired the dumbest idiots they can find and put them on the Discovery Channel with the naked eye. But when I put the camera on it, and got back home and blew it up on my computer, then I found this. Sorry guys, this is going to be a little shaky. This is Jeff. I'm over here in a remote area in northwest Montana, just off the road. Coming into this road, you saw lots and lots of trees being uprooted. And now we're in this massive area, acres and acres and acres of uprooted, overturned, stacked up trees, wedged trees like this. This is all brand new, guys. All brand new destruction. Look, you see how far back that goes? I can't even get in here. Look at this. Look at this. There's no tracks in here. There's no tire tracks anywhere. This was not a logging operation, a clearing operation. No heavy machinery's been back here. This is straight up. This is straight up just getting pushed over. See how far back I can get without getting in too much trouble. getting a really heavy sense that I'm being watched right now. Which happens from time to time on our own property. I already know that this is going to be shaky. The camera's going to be shaky. I've never seen anything like this. Guys, where I live, I have lots of structures on my own property. Look at this. They're snapped off. They're trapped in half. See, there's no tire tracks.
How tall did it appear to be?
He's a big man. He must have been every bit of 8 feet tall. It's, wow. I mean, his shoulders were so wide, and he kind of, his traps, you can see zoomed in, like the traps, you know, showing off in the sunlight. You know, just wow. Massive guy. He's big shoulders, big traps going up to the base of his head and everything. So really,
and what I saw in there is also a lot of prints. Looks like about a 16, 18-inch long print.
Yeah, so we had a lot of prints on our property. We had a lot of prints
in Marion.
In Marion, yeah.
Oh, okay, but yeah. There looked like prints in Big Fork too.
As far as I recall, I didn't see any prints in Big Fork, but I might have had it in that. I think I put prints in that video probably that I got from Marion. Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
Isn't that something? Yeah. You know, Jeff, I totally understand that feeling of being watched. My buddy and I went on a canoe trip, and we pulled into a remote island in Flathead River. And I couldn't sleep, and we were pretty tough guys. We did quite a bit of fighting, and he was a wrestler for Columbia Falls, and I'm just laying there for like over an hour, couldn't sleep. And I said, "Jay, you up?" And he said, "Yeah, something's watching us. This is creepy." And then right after that, some giant splashes.
Oh yeah.
And it much bigger and bigger beaver tail. And I believe it was Bigfoot throwing giant rocks in. That's what they do.
Sure.
To scare people off.
As far as those guys are concerned, they've growled at us. We've not had any rocks thrown, but definitely they've broken trees.
Yeah.
So when I've been out to one spot where they've made, I'm not going to call it a nest, but it's definitely like a blind type of deal. I go out and look at that one spot, and then I came back an hour later, and a big fir tree was broken across my trail. That on a bluebird day like today. I mean, that stuff happens constantly.
And how big of a tree was it?
That tree, amazingly enough, that tree was every bit of 8-inch OD. You know, wow. So it was about that big around. And then on our property, all these trees were broken at the same height.
Interesting.
You know, so it's the same guy going around and breaking these trees over. We had trees, James. We had trees that were that big around, they were twisted, twisted around. 3 of them in a row, twisted around and bent over in the same direction. It's astonishing the strength of what it would take to do that.
Well, you know, we did a recon on a fresh sighting out in the Kiowa area, and we found a tree. It was only about that big, but it was broke off at 8 feet, and it wasn't in a windy spot at all. And we thought, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And I have since found that that's one of the habitual things they do to mark territory.
We would find trees that they not only they'll bend over one tree this way, then they'll break this one, and they'll break it and lay it across to keep those other 2 trees bent down. You know, nice. And so X's all over the place. They from trees that have been placed there, like they didn't grow there. Their trees have been stripped of branches, by the way, of branches and placed in an X formation in 2 different spots. We found bundles of branches, bundles of skinny tree strung out, and made X's out of bundles of trees. So,
Do you still have the property?
no, we don't have that property anymore.
How many
Up in
acres
Whiteside.
was it?
60 acres.
There's 60 acres
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of elk out there. And you got a nice family. How many kids you got?
We have 4 children.
Oh, 4
Yeah,
children.
we have 4
Nice.
kids, yeah.
Where are you living at now?
Up in Whiteside.
And just give the name of your Bigfoot show that has that video in it.
Yeah, well, it's on my channel, Jeff of All Trades. Sasquatch sighting in Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One thing I love about this area is the amount of activity that we have, and it's also it shows you that we don't know everything, and that our faith is justified in being able to know that there's things out there that we don't have to fully grasp and fully understand.
Yeah.
And that bleeds into our faith life on a much larger scale.
Nice. I even got to interview a gal who had a very clear sighting of a dog man, 8 foot tall, kind of a werewolf. It's on my channel too.
So out in Marion, we have a lot of activity out there, like we've already discussed. But there's every once in a while you hear screams, and so I'm out there gathering firewood one day, and I'm listening, and there's screams coming out of the mountain, and it's exactly like I'm hearing from like Jurassic Park, for example. So this big, enormous roar comes right out of the hills, and it's 8 o'clock at night in the wintertime, so it's dark. It was a really, really bone-chilling experience to hear that close. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go inside and pretend like there's nothing there. We would hear screams from one side of the lake on our side, and then on the other side of Bitterroot Lake, then we'd hear another one coming from the other side. We'd hear wood knocks all the time and stuff like that too. Right? So
I know that area pretty good because I hunted for years out of Thompson River, and you go west to Kalispell, and it's just about 20 miles, and there's that lake there. Is that Bitterroot Lake, right?
It's Bitterroot, yeah. So if you go 20 miles, you can hit Marion, and there's a gas station or whatnot there. And so north up that way.
A couple miles north.
Yeah. So there's lots of activity out there.
Well, I want you to listen to this scream and see what you think.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm from Vancouver Island, Canada, just off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia, and encountered these strange noises about 3 times, but it was probably one of the most hair-lifting experiences I've ever had.
Fasten your seatbelt, everybody, because here it is. Well, after hearing that, was there any similarities there?
Yeah, big similarities. We hear that quite often. The loudest one I heard out there in Marion had a little more of a rumbly growl to it, as far as the roar is concerned. But we definitely hear stuff like that all the time.
Isn't that something? But they never bothered you, but your chickens were missing sometime.
So so I'm outside. The chickens are outside. I was in my office, and I had, there's always a couple of birds that like to kind of do their own thing, don't go back in the coop as well as they should.
Yeah.
Well, we had a couple sitting on the wood pile, and I heard boom on my front porch because I had the wood sitting on the front porch of the cabin, and I heard chickens cutting up, and then I go and I look, and those 2 hens were gone after that big crash. I was on the porch. The next morning, I go out and look to check on our chickens that were in the coop. Now, the door on our coop was locked, and everything was locked up. They were locked up for the night. The door was still locked, but at the same time, 6 chickens were missing.
The door was still locked, so they got in there, got them, and then locked the door.
Closed the door back, but all of their roosts were knocked down on the ground.
Oh.
So they were all knocked down on the ground.
But they were smart enough to close the door back.
Were
there prints on that occasion?
Yeah. So there was lots of straw on the ground.
Yeah.
And it was frozen, but so we didn't get a whole lot of prints on the ground. But most of our prints we saw during the spring when the ground starts to thaw. That's when we see most of the prints. But yeah, we were missing 8 chickens as a result of that.
That's something that they
one night.
closed the door behind themselves.
They closed the door. Our water trough was also lower. One time I had 13 eggs in the nest box. I had 13 eggs, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going in for the night. I'll come out and get these eggs in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I go out there the next morning with my basket, because I didn't have a basket or anything with me. Go out the next morning, and every one of those eggs was gone.
Wow.
Every one of those eggs was gone. Now people might say, well, maybe that's somebody messing with you. My neighbors wouldn't do that, and it's not only would they not do it, people know better. People know better. Just go walking around properties over there, you know.
Yeah.
But we had trail cameras and everything else set up, and we didn't get anything on the trail cameras. You know, there were no people on the trail cameras or anything like that, which is another very odd thing. You know, 13 eggs go missing at once, chickens go missing, and there's nothing on the trail cameras, which is very, very odd.
That is odd.
Yeah.
But they were real beings that left real prints. And how long ago did you have that property?
Several years ago, we had that property. Yeah.
So when you saw that one on your same property, what did he look like?
He was black. He was black. Yeah, he was black, and he was tall. Like I said, there was a branch coming off of the big fir tree up there.
Yeah.
Now I've been up there a couple of times. There's a big rock outcropping up there, and I've been up there a couple of times, and I'd heard growls over there 2 times. And so I always thought that I was stumbling across a black bear or something like that, hearing those growls. And I look around, and there's nothing there. And so there's a big giant fir tree up there at the top of that hill, right next to those rocks. And his head, he was stooping, his head was coming underneath that branch, and I can't reach that branch by standing. You know, so
he was standing up, you reckon? He wasn't in the tree?
No, he was standing. He was standing. Yeah, he was peeking from behind the tree. You can't even
reach
I can't even reach the branch, and his head was right underneath it. You know, and it's like he was kind of stooping to get underneath that branch to see me.
That's something.
Yeah.
You want to say anything about your YouTube channel?
Well, it's Jeff of all trades. You know, we do leather work and woodworking and stuff like that. And I'm also a professional trader. And I teach trading. So I have lots of. I really believe.
Is that stock trading or trading other items?
We trade futures.
Okay.
So I teach people how to do that online. But at the end of the day, I believe that people, men especially, need to have a trade. Need to know how to do things with their hands and have. Multiple skills where they can take care of and provide for their family.
Okay.
And so I named the channel Jeff of All Trades. Because
nice. My dad told me, now, Bud, dig one well. Me, I already been a jack of all trade all my life, and I never really did. I had a bunch of things going too. Well, tell us about the one you thought you saw yesterday there at Bootjack Lake.
Yeah, so we went out there. Took the kids over there to go check out the lake, and it was an evening time. We were just kind of driving around, and we saw a lot of activity, a lot of tree structures and stuff like that. And as we're walking along, about to leave, I looked down the ground, and sure enough, there was a really, really heavy footprint that just smashed down. All of the soil was just printed it all, just pushed it all down, right in the shape of a Sasquatch footprint. It was much larger than. I've got a size 12 boot here, and it was dwarfed my boot.
Even your son here, he thought it was a real Bigfoot track too. Just had a conversation with some of my really good huckleberry pickers that live out in that same general area as this individual. And they said one time they were in a very remote area hiking, and they went down the trail, and when they came back, there was a big round of wood that was about that thick that had been sawed years ago, and something had thrown it onto the trail, and there was like a great big handprint on it. Thought that was kind of interesting. They said they've heard a lot of whoops and tree knocks out there. And I asked if they'd be willing to talk about it, and they said, well, to us it's kind of sacred. Grizzly family, Sal and 2 cubs, bawling and angry. The grizzly did not do this to me. It was just a really rough hike. In a popular Sasquatch channel, it shows them trying to capture footage of the Sasquatch by going right up a pristine stream with a high horsepower big ATV. In real hunting, you probably wouldn't even see a squirrel like that. I have walked right up on elk in their bed undetected. You got to get the wind in your favor. At times as we go through the forest, we even roll around where we have seen fresh elk urination, and then you walk softly without a sound. This trophy deer I stalked stealthily on my belly for over 1,000 yards before shooting it at 450. So these are the same techniques we employ when we're hunting footage of the Bigfoot. I had this tip by the son of a Blackfeet hunting guide about where to search.
So we loaded those last 3 logs, chained them down, drove out, and his son had lived up in Kiowa Camp. We passed him on the highway. Everett called his dad when he got home. He says, I could still see you guys in my rearview mirror. He said that Bigfoot come running up the side of the highway. Broad daylight.
Wow.
It come running up the side of the highway. It didn't have to jump the fence. It stepped over the fence, ran across the highway.
Stepped over it. It had long enough legs.
Yeah, stepped over that.
Did he say how big it was?
He said it was huge. And it ran up the direction we had this come from.
Wow. Around Kiowa Camp. See, that's where this family was sighted. And
Yes.
I reported it and did some recon in Incredible Bigfoot 3.
Yes.
And that's where we saw the broken off lodgepole.
Up in there is where I heard those ones that morning.
Up in there, huh?
So it's got to be an area where they frequent.
Yes.
And where that's at, you go further west, there's some big draws that come right out of the park, right out of the thickest, rockiest areas.
Yeah.
Onto the reservation site.
Uh-huh.
So I believe they're funneling out of those areas into 9-1.
So I took the biggest Bigfoot hotspot I knew, and then we hiked up a draw into the park further, then charted a course with our GPS cross country to hunt up what we could find. On June 5th, 2024, we found ourselves in an area that had more grizzly bear per square mile than possibly anywhere on Earth. Here it is. Last Wednesday, Jeremy and I did an extremely rough country off the grid, miles from the nearest trail, trek through rough country to search for Bigfoot. The wind was blowing so hard that my Apple Watch said it could harm our hearing, and with the heavy wind drowning out the noise, I was picking my way carefully through these boulders, and I look up, and there about 60, 70 feet away is a sow grizzly and 2 cubs, and I thought I saw the father as well. That is probably the most dangerous situation in the Montana wilderness, surprising a sow and 2 cubs. But you know, I've had a lot of close grizzly encounters. I almost ran into a big one on my mountain bike 7 feet away. I got charged to within 25 feet. I was treed by a bear for 40 minutes before they had bear spray. And some people, when I tell them these experiences, they say, BS. So I thought, man, I'm gonna prove this one. Even if it costs me my life, I'm gonna get the video. So I stood there in the danger zone for 16 seconds, getting the video of an angry sow grizzly bawling and screaming at me. And toward the end of the day, we realized we might not be able to get back to a car. We may have to spend the night, and our only real survival gear was lighters, and it was blowing 45-mile-an-hour wind. So we decided to cut through an area to get back to the original vehicle. And then these 2 big grizzly bears were blocking our path.
A couple of big old grizzly bears walking up that path there. That's right on the route we were going to take. About 3 mountains and 5 valleys and 2 rivers later.
And the reason that we're doing this is our last squatch was following a family sighting in that Kiowa area. Okay, just come. Tracks down there we're gonna go check out. Here we go with something very definite, guys.
Like a huge humanoid breaking it dramatically.
That is an interesting break of a tree, isn't it? And then Hiram Upham, my friend, had his dog drag up a juvenile Bigfoot leg, an incredible Bigfoot 4. You can see the video of the leg that the wolves killed in that same general area. And then the son of a big game hunting guide, a native man, told me that where they are really hunkering down is in these
Draw a ravine.
Yeah, a ravine, creek area coming out of Glacier Park, and that's exactly where we are now. And about 3 or 4 years ago, somebody showed me a video of a giant Sasquatch up around Upper St. Mary's Lake, and I thought it must be CGI. It was so big, it had to be 12 foot. But then I interviewed a native gal that said she saw one that big in the other side of the range. Could have been the same animal. And just putting all this together makes me think this could be about as promising as anywhere I could think of. What's your thoughts there, Jeremy?
Yeah, it seems like a good area.
Yeah, it's definitely thick. We're definitely away from any trail, we're away from any people. What are we, 6.3 from the truck now? Well, now we start the off-trail portion of our trek, because Bigfoot are elusive creatures, and we're probably not going to be seeing any near a trail. Now we are crossing the Continental Divide on our way to East Glacier. Right now we have marked some waypoints, and we're thinking if we can get to that shark tooth or to that mountain or even to this mountain, it would be a good cross double valley trek. This one to the left of the tree is what I call the shark's tooth, and what the son of the Native American big game hunting guide told me is the Bigfoot are hanging out in these draws that are coming out of Glacier Park. So we're thinking if we can get out toward that shark tooth. We are currently 5.37 miles from the car by GPS, and that could be a draw coming out of the park. Jeremy and I started wanting to go from the St. Mary Lakes area to the area we had done our previous squatch in, and yet we realized it was 16 or 20 miles off trails, and there's no way we're going to do that in one day. So we had to figure it out. Jeremy figured out this good little road that goes back in here. Oh my gosh, this little road is actually a back entrance into Glacier National Park. This is so cool. It's shaping up really nice. You think that might be a ranger station? Sure isn't. Some pristine remote country. Okay, how far are we from that car? 5.53 miles, not bad. This area is really great bear country. We might see a grizzly or a Bigfoot at any moment. Look at those beautiful flowers.
Cut behind this big mountain, and we might have to cross something
to get over to Red Mountain.
And then make our way back.
That second heart, that's where we're located with the car.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a big mountain between us where we're at right now and the car.
Right now, I think it's just this ridge you can see on our left that we've kind of been doing. Like, we could just kind of go up the ridge there and over.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it'd be too bad. But if we keep going, then I think we'd end up circling around behind some of these big mountains.
Yeah.
We'd probably have to cross one mountain
to get to the car. And now we have found a trail as well.
This is the topographical view. So it would go from where we were and it'd go up between these mountains. So actually, if we did decide to loop around behind this mountain, then that trailhead would take us part of the way.
Well, that's not a bad idea. What do you think? Well, I think going up that trail might be the answer. go up there 2 or 3 miles, possibly get on the other side of the stream, and then head back to the car. I'm kind of hoping and wondering if that's my shark's tooth that I call the shark's tooth. Just looks like a mile straight in front of us. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks about right.
And so our June 5th, 2024 Bigfoot trek begins.
Like if you're hiking through, could you put them on a fire and eat them?
Yeah, you could. There are keeper limits in the park, and you can keep a certain amount of fish. So judging from your map, what do you think are the chances of us finding a bridge across the stream?
Really didn't check. I'm out of range now, that's why I can't get the satellite image map.
If there was a bridge, it'd probably be on this lower fork, I'm thinking. This trail is the lesser used of the two. No, we're not on the other side of the stream, Jeremy. Looks to me like this is what you said, a ford for horses. That looks a little swift for fording, probably up to your belly button and swift. Looks to me like it's definitely to our advantage to go upstream a little to try to cross that stream where it's not so huge, huh? This looks like good wildlife habitat of almost any kind. I'm seeing some, looks like moose tracks and deer tracks. One time my son Abe and I were on a 41-mile hike from Logan's Pass clear to Canada. These three other hikers passed us, and then maybe 100 feet up the trail, we saw a grizzly bear, big track over their tracks. That would probably be a doable place to cross this stream. So we could cross now and go up that ridge and back to the car, or we could go and get on the other side of the ridge down here somewhere.
If we go around the back of this bigger mountain, I think we'll have to cross. We'll have a little bit.
That'd be kind of a cool draw. Boy, that's a pretty meadow, isn't it? At this time, we need to get on the other side of this big stream. Well, at least the stream splits in two up here. Well, it looks like back there was a nice, concise crossing that was steep and deep and swift. But now it's sort of a quarter-mile long marshy spot. What do you think?
I don't think I want to cross right here.
Right. Almost 6 miles from the car. And we're hoping if we get up here a little further, it'll be less precarious to cross. My dream trek was to come from that shark's tooth back to the car. We're getting closer. Whoa, that's big and that's fresh. What's it look like to you?
Probably a bear.
Probably a big bear. Look how big that is compared to my size 10.5 shoe. Hey, here's a welcome sign, a bridge over 1/25th of the stream. I have seen a lot of bear poop in my day, Jeremy, but I've never seen one that big. What about you?
Yeah, maybe not.
You found a track?
Yeah.
You sure did. Not real super duper fresh, but pretty sizable. Well, I sure like the looks of the fact that we're crossing little bits of water. We both have bear spray at the ready, and I have too. See some more tracks? Well, here's a split stream situation, but it still looks like it's through about a quarter mile of tundra. Well, now the car is 6.04 miles away, and we have hiked 1.77 miles. So we've got a pretty good hike across country ahead of us.
Yeah, I almost think I might see a spot up here right there.
Do you have any extra shoes?
Nah, but I'll just take mine off when we go across.
Jeremy went barefoot for, what was it, 2 years in a row?
Probably a lot more than that.
Really?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6.
It's a Hungry Horse Mountain boy. Now, what was the purpose of you going barefoot, Jeremy?
I don't know. I just wanted to.
Just wanted to get your feet tough, and boy, I bet they did get tough. I went through a phase where I wore nothing but moccasins for quite a while, but then I did a hike of Great Northern Mountain and got up toward the top in that shale, and I wished I had real shoes on.
I climbed Mount Reynolds barefoot once.
That's insane, man. We climbed Mount Reynolds together, you remember, with Abe. And that's a gnarly mountain to get up. A shark's tooth, and look, there it is. I kind of like the looks of this spot to cross because I can't find, and I think I found a mountain goat. Look at that white spot, see what you think. Think it's a goat?
Yeah, it's definitely a mountain goat. It got up and it's walking around.
Cool, just one?
I think I see another one a little lower down too.
That hiker that we passed, he's coming up here for a goat survey.
Oh, really?
So far we hiked 2.22 miles, and we are 6.28 from the car. It says loud environment, sound levels hit 90 decibels. Can cause temporary hearing damage. That wind is really ripping. There's another bear track, but I don't really understand why that poop was a lot fresher than the track. I think I'll don my water shoes. Okay, let's see what the Hungry Horse Mountain Boy does. Oh, he jumps across. Well, for me, the time has come to don my slides and just walk across. Oh boy, is that ever cold. That's pure ice. This water is sure cold, man. Well, seems like it's time to just bite the bullet, huh? Now, times like this are off the trail. Very high alert for the grizzly bear, but I got 2 bear sprays and he's got a brand new one. And we're sticking together. Look at that pretty high mountain thistle. Huckleberries. This tree is getting us part way there. Really an abundance of moose sign. Some more bear doo-doo. Well, we have some rushing water to yet cross. Think that might be some kind of log jam down there? I have forded stuff like this plenty, but it's really swift, and I've got some electronics. We just saw something move up there fairly big. These are the times that separate the men from the boys on a squatch hunt. Not everybody wants to do this kind of stuff.
I saw a spot right up here that might be doable.
It's swift, but not crazy swift. But if you lose your footing, then you'd go into the real swift. I wonder if we should put some stuff in bags just in case. Well, it's slippery rocks and pretty good current over there. Looks to me up to about the thighs. But if we lose our footing, some pretty gnarly little rapids. Well, here goes.
Made it.
There's no one I would rather be with on this particular part of this journey because Jeremy does a lot of snorkeling down the rivers and he's used to the cold, he's used to the water, but that crossing is no piece of cake. It's deep, and if you lose your footing, you're lost in 150 feet of real whitewater. Here he goes in his bare feet. Pretty cold, yeah. This next 10 feet is slowly and carefully. Don't get too far down. It's steep down there. It's swifter down river. Those rocks are pretty slippery, and it's really steep really swift where he is right now. Probably Bigfoot watching us thinking, what are those guys doing? Good job. As soon as we cross, I see a pretty distinct indentation here. I was pretty scratched up by the time it was done, and I had pants on most of the time. It's a nice little natural green park, huh?
Yeah.
Well, now we are getting back in here to where we could conceivably see something. Time to switch back to some shoes. Well, we are across the perilous little river, and it feels really good to be on the other side. Both of us have dry shoes, and I even had extra socks. Okay, now is when we start hunting. We are going to be real quiet and just take soft steps and see what we can find. I told Jeremy if a grizzly bear charges him, try to get it on video. In all seriousness, we both have our bear spray extremely on the ready. I've been charged at close range by a grizz, and you would just barely have time to clear the holster of your bear spray if one came at you. This is nice country. We should see something in here. Elk, moose, bear, something. We are moving through here super quiet. It's really some good virgin territory. This is what it's like, just working our way stealthily through the thick stuff. So if you are a Bigfoot, you don't hang out where everybody can watch you. And the wind is good and strong, so it should keep us quiet. Got 6.24 miles to go to Jeremy's car. This is one that I've used for elk. You'll see some of my elk locations here. And in this case, I am going to Big 2. Go to. Great, weak signal. I have walked right up onto elk in their bed 30 yards away doing this. That waterfall up there is spray and mist. Sure is a beautiful, soothing place. Faster but kind of noisy. I'm on a pretty steep distance while Jeremy is down there taking the longer way but not twisting his ankle. It is really slow going. This is slow going. We were at 6.2 and now we're at 5.84. Dang, unexpected rough country. We just went through some really rugged country, and there is a waterfall. Oh my gosh, there's grizzly family, sow and 2 cubs, bawling and angry. Now, you are not really supposed to run in an intense bear encounter like that, but there were several situations that made it conducive in my mind. Number one, she had got the cubs off to a place of safety, and then she was wheeling around to decide to attack, but she had not really fully committed to an attack. Number two, the terrain was downhill and really rocky. And I'm pretty good at running over big rocks because I've had a lot of practice in the mountains. And number three, I'm a fast guy. I won a lot of track ribbons in the sprints in my youth, and my son has that speed. He was a D1 running back and ran a 4.49. So as soon as I took that video, I wheeled around and ran like the wind. And in this situation, thankfully it worked. Also, the direction I was running was downhill, and I've heard that bears can't run as fast downhill. Well, we just pissed off a mother and 2 big cubs. They were really bawling and pissed.
That's what I was trying to go. Just straight away from them, not like cut the long charger.
Leave your old buddy up here to roast, huh? Those who do business on great waters, these have seen the works of the Lord. This was an amazing world-class physical fitness challenge. I have cross-country skied races of over 33 miles, and this was every bit as hard or harder than that. Probably harder than these Spartan races people do. And yet when you step out in great ventures like this, you see the wonders of the Lord. What a wonder to see this sow and cubs in among the giant waterfall and the rocky crags. Some people look at how scratched up I am after that hike and think the bear did it, but it actually was just the rough country. That was a really super close grizzly sighting for me. Thank God they headed the other direction, because if they decided to defend, I could have been in big trouble. But Jeremy he was looking on down the mountain. He believes in that kind of grizzly defense, that as long as you can outrun the slowest member of your party. That was something, man. They were bawling and just. Well, we just crossed over another stream, and what a beautiful, beautiful stream it is. That could have been rough because those yearling cubs were big enough to do damage themselves, and to have three coming at you would have been a little scary. Well, we just came through some super thick stuff, and now we got some super rocky stuff. After that grizzly encounter, I'm a little more concerned with not seeing grizzlies than I am with seeing Bigfoot.
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is.
The rocky terrain seemed unending. These are my new Hokas after going through all those rocks, and we were just as beat up as the tennis shoes and decided, man, if we're not going to spend the night out here, we'd better actually head for my RAV, which was under 2 miles away, rather than go 5 miles to Jeremy's car, as was our original plan. It was a hard choice because we knew we'd have to cross a veritable small river that was ice cold in taking this choice. And then it became a little harder because as we plotted a nice course to get back, there were 2 grizzly bears in our way.
There's a couple of big old grizzly bears walking up that path there. That's right on the route we were going to take. We were going to come down and go onto that ridge right above them and then cut over to the left.
While we were trying to figure out if we should go across this river or not, moose came and crossed the river. And then the moose's yearling calf came and crossed the river. It had the effect of reassuring me that, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. It's going to be okay.
There's a moose up here.
A lot more shallow.
Are you sure? I'm not sure.
Isaiah 43 says, when you cross the river, I will be with you. You won't get swept away. Sometime in life, we got to go through some difficult, challenging things, and that's a great promise, and for us, it was a literal thing. Hi, Mom. Yay, we're home.
Yeah. About 3 mountains and 5 valleys and 2 rivers later.
Well, I think the Lord sent that moose to show us that it could be done and we don't need to be afraid. There's a fox. See him? I just love foxes. That one looks like it's slightly injured. I had a pet fox when I was about 6. Isn't that something? Thank you, Lord. And the final point, be thankful for what the journey brings, even if it wasn't what you were looking for. There's a great show called Cool Runnings, and they named their sled Peace Be the Journey. And we got to keep that spirit in life where peace be the journey. Jeremy and I were looking for Bigfoot. We didn't see a sign of Bigfoot. Well, except at one point we did see a severed off deer leg that had some of the meat on it. That's something a Sasquatch might do, but so could a cougar or a bear. So we didn't find any Bigfoot, but what we did find was incredible, and so we were very thankful. As you can tell, I was super excited that I was making it okay across that river because I was really beat up. The portion of going through them big rocks, man, we'd think that we were done with it and we'd get around the corner and there was another field of big rocks for another 100 yards. About 10 times that happened. And we kept going and going, and I was feeling rough, man. I was feeling like this is a brutal hike, and I have no idea how we're going to get out in time. But when we decided to beeline right back to the truck, it was only 1.59 miles, and we're able to get across the river so we could get home. It was a great feeling. Neither Jeremy nor I saw even a little sign of Bigfoot, but man, to have those two close encounters with the grizzlies, to see the two moose and the hawk and the fox, what a rich day. These shoes were essentially brand new before the hike, and look at them now. It was a rough hike, and me also, look at that damage I did, and I had pants on most of the time except for about 10% of the time, and my arms are pretty scratched up too, but it was a great epic time, and I sure feel strong and alive. This is Cindy, and she saw Bigfoot with her father in Cougar, Washington.
Yes, I did. We were up by Merle Lake, gonna go fishing. I had my son and my daughter with us. They were very young at the time. We were up on an upper logging road, looking down into Merle Lake, figuring out, okay, how we were gonna get down in there, hike down in there. There was a tree line off to the left, and we heard this growl or roar, and Dad kind of looked at me, and we looked at the tree line, and out he stepped, and he looked up at us and gave us another growl and a roar. Dad said, get in the truck, and we hightailed it back out of there.
Could you tell at all about how big it may have been?
I would say at least 10 feet tall. He was standing on his two legs, very hairy. Like I said, he let us know that he did not like us there because we were standing up grade from him. We knew our scent, was floating down to him, and Dad says, it's time to go.
And what color?
He was brown, darkish brown.
Kind of lanky or really filled out?
Filled out.
Yeah.
He was a big boy.
A big boy,
A big boy, yeah.
Isn't that something? I bet you'll never forget that the rest of your life.
Absolutely not.
How old were you?
About 19, 20 maybe, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and I still live up in Amboy, Washington, and so been up in the woods and have found houses that,
So did the sound like that one I just played you?
Absolutely. And it does make your hair all over your body stand up, and you do get the goosebumps.
That's something, because on this show I've got 2 recordings of it, and they're very similar, maybe 700 miles apart.
Wow. Well, yeah. Yeah, that was the sound, buddy. Like I said, it was many, many years ago, but I remember it clearly.
Isn't that something amazing?
Right?
That is incredible to me, that I have 2 separate recordings 800 miles away, and they both sound the same, and this gal who heard the roar says it's absolutely what she heard. So at least the coastal variety has a distinct roar / scream, or whatever you want to call it. My very first interview near Willow Creek, the native man said it was 9 or 10 feet tall as well. She said she lives on the family homestead still, northeast of Amboy or Battleground, and that there's been 4 generations of them living on that for 150 years. Look on the map how there's nothing between Battleground and even that other little tiny town. I drove through that area one time, and I thought, what a desolate area. I drove through that area one time, and I thought, man, what a remote, desolate area. They even had to have little phone posts along the desolate highway in case people got stranded, because it's just like there's miles and miles of wilderness with no towns or anything. Whenever I get an authentic sighting, I like to Google it, because I almost always find confirmative evidence online. BFRO report wood knock heard near Merrill Lake. They are big dudes, and when they're sighted, there are usually other reports online. So this is Cal and Rochelle, and Cal was in last year and said his daughter had a direct Bigfoot sighting, and now here Rochelle is to tell us.
Okay, so it was either a Monday or Tuesday morning. It was back in like 2015. I was on my way to work. It was about 6:45, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going from Whitehall to Butte, and I'm driving over Homestake Pass. Homestake Pass is usually very busy, no matter what time. That morning was kind of rare because there was hardly anybody on the pass. I maybe saw 1 or 2 cars. So when you get into Homestake Pass, there is a rest area that's right smack dab in the middle of it. I was about 3/4 of miles to that, and there is a straight stretch before you go down to the curb to the rest area. So I was on that straight stretch. I just started to get on that. I saw something at the left of me at the corner of my eye. I thought it was large. I thought it was a bear. It leaped over the cement barricade right in the middle. It leaped over there, and as it leaped, it took 3 long strides, big strides, and I'd say it's about 7 to 8 feet tall. Could have been bigger. I only saw it for like 3 seconds.
Wow.
At that, he looked straight at me. He was very, very hairy. He was the color of a brown bear. His hands, I mean, I got a good look. I never got time when you need a camera. You don't get time to grab it. But his hands were big. His face looked of an ape-ish look. I mean, he looked right at me, took 3 long strides over. He went right in front of me, and then he was gone. I didn't see him again. Very nervous. I was really hyped up on adrenaline. When I got to my job, I called my mom and said, "You're not going to believe what I just saw. I just saw what we've all been hearing about Bigfoot, about Sasquatch." So yeah, I saw him. He's there. He's alive.
Yeah, well, is that I-90 at that point?
Yes, that is I-90.
Wow, I-90.
Yeah.
How far from Butte?
It's only, when you get halfway there, it's maybe about 6 to 7 miles, about that. So it was right there on that stretch.
Just 6 to 7 miles to Butte. On the one side, you can turn south to Dillon, and on the other side, were you on the other side, or?
I was right on Homestake Pass. I was right on I-90, so it's Homestake Pass is right in between Pipestone and Butte, so I was right on that interstate.
Is it west or east of Butte?
It is east of Butte.
Oh, east of Butte. That's what I thought. Yeah, because other side you turn down to Dillon.
Correct.
Wow.
So
and did he stop and look at you for a second? He just looked at you while he was trucking across.
He was trucking across. I had to hit my brakes. So, but I would say no further from, for me, to that box up on your deal right over there.
Wow. So
that's how far he was from me.
So really close.
He was close.
Was his arms disproportionately longer than a human, kind of like an ape arm, or was it kind of humanoid proportions? He was proportionate for a guy's height. For that height, that 7 to 8 feet, I'd say it was a norm. I mean, I can't really explain that. What I saw was just this very large 2-legged animal running. I couldn't believe that it would be a person running at 6:45 or 7 o'clock in the morning over Homestake on a Tuesday or Monday morning. Yeah, isn't that something? But no, it was really, really strange. It was long strides. It took 3 strides to get from over that cement, the medium, to get over. It took 3 strides. Just 3 strides to cross the 4 lane, including the shoulder. Yep, and he was running. It was running. It was pretty fast, or did it look like an awkward run, or he looked like he could run pretty good? Looked like he could run pretty good. Wow, isn't that something? Yeah. Big bare feet, huh? Very large. Yeah, the feet were big. This was back in 2015, but I just remember how I felt, what I saw, and it was just adrenaline going through, heart pumping, and I'm like, I bet. Who the heck's gonna believe this? There's no other cars around, which is really weird. Usually there's truckers, there's, other vehicles going, and that morning there was nobody. Absolutely. I only saw 2 vehicles that morning. Have you told many people, or are you kind of cautious, thinking that people might think you're nuts? Exactly. Yeah. So
Exactly.
you don't talk about it much.
Not very often, no. If somebody asks
Yeah.
me, I'll be like, all right, they're there.
But you haven't volunteered the story too
No.
much. Well, we
No,
really
this is the
appreciate
first time
you.
I've actually told somebody through YouTube. So
Wow, we really appreciate you coming forward because you're the 39th person that I've interviewed that has either seen him or, in one case, it was a recording of a Bigfoot screaming in the woods. I counted that because that's almost as good as sighting. But basically, 38 people that have seen him with their own eyes. So you're not alone, but a lot of people, even a mother and a daughter, said to each other, hey, let's, as long as we live, never tell anybody because they'll think we're bonkers. So there is that factor, but the reality is that it is a real living thing, and people are seeing it.
oh yeah, it's there. When it even comes even to outer space or anything like that, we are not the only type of beings out there. So
Yeah.
he's there. I mean, there's just been too many sightings. It is what it is.
And
He's
you were
there.
able to see the being go off into the shoulder there?
Yep. Yes, and because when you look down, it goes down into like the ravine, and you can see there's railroad tracks and everything. But it spooked me. I mean, I shouldn't say it spooked. It's excitement. It's adrenaline. And you feel like you're going nuts at first because you're like, who the heck's gonna believe this?
Were you looking for your phone at all to try to get a bid, or
No,
were you just
no,
in shell shock?
I was like this because I hit my brakes.
Oh, because you almost had to hit your brakes or run into him?
Yeah, on there it's 65,
Yeah.
65, 75.
So
Well, at that time,
so you're going pretty fast.
it was 75 at that time.
Yeah, I know.
Before it switched over to the 65.
Yeah.
So it was 75. I was going 75. Okay, my speed demon, I'm not gonna lie, I was probably doing close to 80, but
Me too.
yeah, and I had to slam on my brakes. I was still kind of in motion when I hit it.
Isn't that something?
So yeah.
Now, I've hunted elk down in that area, and it's pretty good elk hunting, and there's a lot of critters around there, but that's crazy, man. That must, what's your feeling now, 8 years later? Is it just like yesterday in your mind?
Yeah, anytime you go up in that area, I used to go up into Pipestone a lot on the Razor and stuff like that. So it was like after that and then going up into the Pipestone, you're always on the lookout for it. You're always on the lookout, like, hey, are they behind the tree? Are they behind, the rocks? Or you always have that desire to look because they're there.
And if you had to guess a height and weight, what would your...
I would say he was close to 7 to 8 feet. I don't know about weight, mate. I don't know an average guy, me, 300-400 pounds, maybe even more than that. You can't
bigger, more buff than a football player, or about that much.
Yeah, he was more buff, but you also got to take into fact on how much hair he had on him.
Yeah, lots of hair, even around the face, or was the face sort of baldish?
I saw the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, but he was covered in hair.
But definitely running too fast to be a guy in a Bigfoot suit.
Exactly. I can't see a man doing that. I mean, I'm sure there's guys out there that will attempt it, but I wouldn't do that on that road.
Yeah, right. It's dangerous to...
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your
thanks for
account.
allowing me to tell you my story.
Okay.
So if you think it's a bear, but it's two-legged and it's doing this, that's not a bear.
Yeah, she's saying some people are like, well, why didn't you grab your phone? But you're just kind of in shell shock.
No, you're in shell shock. You're not going to think about grabbing your phone. Your first thought is, what the heck am I seeing? What is this?
What time of year was it?
September. It was September.
About now. So at that time, it's pretty much light. It's light enough to see. It's not real light, but it's...
No, it was like right at the end of August beginning, and it was just... The sun was just coming up, and there he was.
Just coming up. Wow.
Yep.
What do you do for work? What job?
At that time, I was working for Montana Tech. At that time.
Is that a college?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I was working there, so I had to drive, every day there. But it was.
Yeah.
I don't tell a lot of people that. So.
Right. I understand. Well, thanks again.
No problem.
Look at these amazing white buffalo. I am driving a stretch of road that there's actually a pretty good likelihood of seeing Bigfoot on. We are intentionally driving through the most promising area I know of in the whole United States to actually see a Bigfoot. And we're doing it at dusk, and it's kind of exciting to me because there is a slim chance that we could see something at dusk like this. You may remember in the beginning of Incredible Bigfoot 3, a native lady said that she saw 3 of them, and it was basically right up here on this mountain that she did so. And then in that same film, Jeremy, Josiah, and I went up there, and we did see, yes, it was old in the snow, but it looked more like a Bigfoot track than anything else. And Josiah also found the lodgepole broke off recently at 7.5 feet in an area that had no wind. That is a way that they mark their territory. Now, in this same area, my friend Leilani Upham, who I believe it's that same show I was interviewing her, and people could see a bear across the street from where I was interviewing her. And we don't know if it was her spirit animal or a real bear, but it was certainly interesting. And also, there was a famous incident in the same neck of the woods where a rancher had a Bigfoot go across his property, and he called in BFRO, and they said it looked like a real sighting to them. They set up some cameras and whatnot, and it also made the Browning newspaper, and I believe it was a 21-inch track. And my same friend Leilani Upham had a situation where a lady came and said, I think it was on this road, that she saw a Bigfoot go across the road. And when asked, well, why didn't you get out your phone and take some video? They said they were just too dumbfounded to hardly move, let alone have the presence of mind to take a video. Well, we did see something here, and it was quite interesting because we're in remote country. And tell them what you saw, Mary.
Well, I thought I saw some kind of look like a black cat. It looked like a big black cat or something, or maybe that's a jaguar, I don't know.
So we were driving along here, about 4 miles from any civilization, so it wouldn't have been near anybody's household pet. And what looked like a cat, about a 35 to 45 pound black as night cat, came running out from the ditch and almost ran into my vehicle. I almost ran it over. It just reflexed itself back when it realized it was about to get run over, but we both saw it really clearly. What can you tell me, Mary, about what you saw?
Well, to me it looked like kind of like a big black cat, or maybe it's a jaguar or something, I don't know, but I saw the green eyes on it when the light kind of flashing.
Oh really? You saw green eyes?
Yeah, when the light kind of bright on it. It looked like all the way to your tire.
All the way to my tire, wow.
Yeah, because I saw him when the light kind of flashed on his face, or I don't know if
To me, it did not look as big as a cougar, but it could have been like the size of a juvenile cougar, but it was black. And in Montana, we don't have any creature like that anybody knows of. We don't have jaguars here. We don't have black mountain lions. So this is definitely a mystery and a pretty cool sighting.
You better ready your phone in case we will see again.
Yeah, I think it was about right here that it happened. Oh my God, we just saw it again. What did you think that time, honey?
It looked like same.
It looked like the same size and everything.
Oh my God, it kind of scared me, man.
Yeah, it is kind of scary. It's almost surreal. Did you hear that? it is.
It's
It
dog.
does have kind of green eyes.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. It does kind of look like a cat, though. Well, there's our mystery animal.
Oh my gosh, kind of scared me though.
We definitely got our sighting in for the night, but it.
Oh, that's funny. Oh
That's
my
kind of
God.
funny. The jaguar sighting. Once Mary thought she saw a monkey in
Oh
Glacier
my
Park.
gosh.
I've had so many grizzly bear close encounters that when I see a small black bear, I'll just go out there and walk toward it and get a better video, and Mary will be like, "No, James, you're gonna kill yourself." Well, it was not a man in a Bigfoot suit, but it was a dog pretending to be a jaguar. Now I think I heard the jaguar. Did you hear it?
Yeah, I do hear it.
Here's the actual picture of the footprint that she took. It was right behind their house in Hart Butte, and it's not too far from Browning, Montana. And it's Helen Butterfly. So tell us the whole story.
Well, my son was staying with us, and he decided to, he took a walk out behind the house, and that's when he tracked it, and then he came in and he said, "Mom, come out here, I want to show you this, we got a Bigfoot track." So sure enough, it was there, so sorry we didn't get it cast, but, so I took a picture, and then, and then, so that happened in, what was this in?
You can look at the date.
Yeah, the date. My internet's slow up here. Okay, that happened in July 24th. So in December.
July 24th of this year.
Of this,
wow.
2023.
Oh, 23, okay.
Yeah. And so that same time in December, my husband was out working on the vehicle, and he heard this really loud noise that they make.
Yeah.
In the back of the house, and because I was inside, I was resting from dialysis, and I asked him, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "Well, as soon as I got done with the car," he said, "I just came in the house." But yeah, so it was definitely around.
Right. Are you guys aware of the story that years ago, like maybe in the 1890s or up to maybe 1920, there was a Bigfoot that killed a couple of people out in the Hart Butte region, and the Blackfeet tribe actually went and killed the animal?
No, I wasn't aware of that, but
Yeah.
I never heard that story. But my son, he had a strange encounter one year.
Okay.
And, so that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, well, that's prime Bigfoot country. Do you have time to tell anything about the strange encounter?
Okay, what time is it? Oh yeah, one more. Well, he went way back up in Pink Woman. He was hunting, but he was walking, and he lost his radio because him and his dad.
Okay.
And he couldn't find it. So a year later, he goes through the same trail. He said, "Mom, how would my radio show up?" He said, "My radio was back where I had it, where I lost it." But he missed it a whole year. He said, "The only thing I could think of is a Bigfoot must have took it." Yeah, yeah. He
took
said
it and brought it back.
Took it and brought it back. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. And he had looked for it, obviously.
Yeah, he had looked
the
for it
earlier
for a long
time.
time, and he couldn't find it.
The Bigfoot borrowed the radio.
Yeah, the Bigfoot borrowed the radio. Well, at least he brought it back.
Well, that's quite an impressive track. How long was it?
This track,
Yeah.
I never even measured it.
Did it look like maybe it was long?
It looked like maybe it was like a juvenile size.
Oh, okay.
Not quite an adult.
Maybe
Yeah.
about 12 inches long or something?
Yeah, I think so. But it was a pretty good
Interesting.
size, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Helen. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's a cool testimony, but just so you know, I do not count testimonies like that among the number. I have interviewed 44 people that said they saw Bigfoot with their own eyes. Now, I did include Steve in that number because he had that chilling recording close up.
If there was a Bigfoot.
Yeah, they were doing the
yeah,
knocking
they
up
were
on
knocking
Blacktail?
and it knocked back.
Oh, it
Yeah,
knocked
he said
back.
we were just seeing that there was one mom here. Sure enough, that we got knocks back.
Interesting.
Yeah, John.
I know that's good Bigfoot country because I've interviewed people from around there before, and I fish at a lake called Mitten Lake. So this is Claire Reese, and she's going to tell us an account she had of the Bigfoot near Glacier National Park.
Not near, in.
Okay.
The summers of 1982 to 1985, we lived at Avalanche Campground Ranger Station in Glacier National Park. My husband, Fred Reese, was the campground ranger. The first summer I didn't work for the park, but after that I did for 14 summers. So we were living at the campground ranger station, and I do not know which year it was because it's been long enough ago, but it was in between 82 and 85. We were asleep in our bedroom, woken up by the most terrible screaming I have ever heard in my life. It was truly frightening. I was terrified. It was louder than anything I have ever heard, and I could not figure out what it was at all. At the time, I did not know, and the park definitely did not tell us that we were in Bigfoot country. This screaming went on for easily 10 or 15 minutes. It took a long time for me to wake my husband up and tell him about it. We had a park radio and we had a phone in the ranger station. The screaming was not going on in the direction of the campground. If it would have been, I would have been on the radio or on the phone immediately to get the patrol rangers with their guns to investigate, but it was in the other direction, either near the Trail of the Cedars, which was away from the campground, or between the campground ranger station and the road. The campground ranger station was probably torn down in the summer of 2012. But anyway, we decided we couldn't do anything about it in the dark. At the time, there was no light at night there. We had light produced by a generator that was very noisy and turned on during the day, but not at night. It would be turned off so we would not disturb the campers in the campground. So this is in the summer. We decided there was absolutely nothing we could do about it in the dark, so we just let it be. It was just absolutely terrifying, and it was like nothing I have ever heard before. We did not see it because it sounded too dangerous. At the time, I was wondering, is this a mountain lion pulling an animal apart? But if I remember right, the screaming was not sporadic like you would expect if a deer were being pulled apart, and I don't think a deer would ever make that much noise. It was the most unusual, loud, and terrifying screaming I have ever heard. And I'm guessing it was at most 200 yards away. Now you have to remember where we were, it's forest around there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a campground road, a road going into the campground, and a wheelchair accessible loop trail called the Trail of the Cedars, and part of that trail was on our side of Avalanche Creek. So I never saw it, and that was it, and I can't give you an exact date. Another time, and I don't think it was the same summer, we were asleep again, and something walked by that was the stinkiest thing I have ever smelled. I have been around bears that rolled around in different species droppings to cover their own scent, and this was the worst smell I have ever smelled. I don't know that it was a bear at all. I will never know, because once again, we were in the dark and I was not about to go outside and investigate at all. So that's my two stories. At the time, we did not know that we were in Bigfoot country, so I never put two and two together, and I only found out in 2020 that we were in Bigfoot country.
How did you find out?
Visiting the guy at the House of Mystery. He talked for quite some time about Bigfoot with me, and that's when I put two and two together and realized there was definitely one voice witness, and the other one There's at least a 50-50 chance that it was a Bigfoot. I have heard since then that they can control the smell. They can turn it on and off. And, you know, I don't know enough about them. That screaming, though, I never want to hear it again. Absolutely never. So that's my Bigfoot stories.
Thank you. So the park was shut down for 4 months during COVID, and the very first day that the park reopened, 4 hours after it was open on a rainy day, we had a gal come into the restaurant here and say, "Can I talk to somebody? I'm kind of freaking out. Like, I'm an insurance adjuster. I'm a level-headed person. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I'm pretty sure I saw one up across McDonald Lake on that other side in that burn." I've got that interview on Incredible Bigfoot 1. So there was another sighting in that general region.
I also know the guy from the House of Mystery, and I can't remember his name. He told me he had seen 2 different Bigfoot at the same time up, I think, at the far side of Avalanche Lake.
Oh, really?
So evidently, Avalanche area, you know, is known by at least some people for that. When we were living and working there, we did not know at all. I rangered for the park for 14 summers. My husband rangered for the park for 45 seasons, but he did not know, and they taught us to make bear reports and wolf sighting reports. They just never told us there was no Bigfoot reports to make, just nothing.